Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Robin Dwyer. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories. Desperation and confusion in Gaza as hundreds of thousands of people wait to cross into Egypt but can't get through as the border remains closed. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken returns to Israel as diplomatic efforts to contain the conflict intensify. World leaders fly into Beijing to mark the 10th anniversary of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Russia's President Vladimir Putin is due to arrive in the coming hours. And Poland waits as votes are counted in its election. The opposition claims victory, saying 8 years of conservative rule is over. We begin in Gaza, where hundreds of thousands of people have gathered at the border crossing with Egypt, hoping to be let into the country. Conditions in the besieged enclave are worsening, with water, food, power and medicine in short supply. Israeli troops continue to mass near the border ahead of an expected ground offensive targeting the Palestinian armed group Hamas. Israel has vowed to wipe out Hamas in response to their unprecedented attack 9 days ago, in which Israel now says 199 hostages were taken. In over a week of bombardment on both sides, thousands of people have been killed.
There is no safety. Even when you're at the crossing, you're afraid. On our way to the crossing, they shelled Rafah Street and we started screaming. We came to the crossing and thought it was safe. Nowhere is safe in Gaza. Wherever we go, there's shelling, crying, screaming, blood. Seriously, we don't know what we should do.
With the war, I can't sleep, a lot of bomb, no water, no food, no nothing, no life here, no life.
Well, let's go to Gaza now and talk to our correspondent there, Noor Harazin. So, Noor, many people trying to flee Gaza as essential supplies run out. What's the situation there now?
Well, as we speak, there is still a number of Palestinians waiting at the gate of Rafah border. However, until this moment, there is no news about the reopening of Rafah border from the Egyptian side, either to let foreigners or Palestinians who have other nationalities to get out of Gaza, or about letting humanitarian aid enter the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is actually running out of water and food supplies, and it is something serious. I myself and a number of people who are here in Deir al-Balah, we are facing a serious problem finding even water, especially that the water tanks in the hospital finished this morning. I did not drink a sip of water for like 6 hours until just half an hour ago. A friend brought us bottles of water from another Palestinian city in southern Gaza. So it is something serious, and people are not exaggerating when they are saying that it is Gaza's worst humanitarian crisis in its history. At the same time, the hospitals are running out of fuel, which is also failing to operate the premature babies units and also the intensive care units, and it is also putting the lives of those who were injured in danger. However, people do have hope. They were relieved this morning about when the news about a truce, humanitarian truce spread. They were happy, they were relieved, even though it was all false news. However, they had this hope that maybe in the upcoming days there will be a humanitarian truce, at least to let water in and also food supplies.
Noor, thank you very much. Our correspondent Noor Harazin in Gaza. Diplomatic efforts to contain the conflict are intensifying. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is now in Israel for the second time in a week after meetings with several Arab leaders. He's been pushing for the establishment of a humanitarian corridor in Gaza and the opening of the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. Israel's top-level security cabinet is also expected to convene in Tel Aviv later. Well, let's go to Tel Aviv now and talk to our correspondent, Stephanie Freed. So, Stephanie, what do we know about Antony Blinken's visit there?
Well, Juliet, you were talking about the fact that he's back again. It's a redux. It's the second time he's been here within 4 days. He has conducted a lightning speed tour of 6 different countries, in 7 actually, including Israel, in the region and back again. And the understanding is exactly, the aims are exactly around what you just mentioned, which is humanitarian aid. As well, there's tremendous concern. Certainly with the U.S. government, despite U.S. government support, despite the U.S. government sending warships, not one, not ship, but war fleets to the Mediterranean Sea, they're concerned about a regional outbreak here because there are threats coming from Iranian-backed Hezbollah and Iran itself to Israel, that if Israel goes ahead with this ground invasion that it's talking about, that it's basically promising that it will conduct, that the floodgates will open, that it will cause an earthquake. That's a quote from Iran. And that's not what the U.S. wants to see in the region. That's one thing. Another is there are international citizens, including several hundred U.S. citizens, inside Gaza. So there's an effort to try and get them out and to formulate some sort of understanding, broker some kind of deal between the different sides to secure that. And then as well, you've got the hostages. You have Israel's, the latest count as of today, 199 hostages that were taken into Gaza during that killing spree on October 7, just a bit more than a week ago, by Hamas militants. And some of those are nationals, about 24 are Americans. Related right now, you were talking about the emergency cabinet. Well, Israel's Knesset, their emergency Knesset, or the parliament, just met. During that parliament session, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, he referred to Hamas as Nazis and said this is a fight between light and dark. Let me just see, I'm catching up as well. Related back to the U.S. and citizens, citizens are evacuating. They're not being evacuated, but the U.S. is chartering not only a ship that we saw leave the port of Haifa north of here, but we were at the airport today, and there's a whole section set up for U.S. citizens for them to get out by flights. But they're not the only ones. There are sections of the airport marked off for citizens of more than 30 countries to get out.
Stephanie, also being evacuated, villages on the Lebanon-Israel border. What's happening there?
Well, since the war began a little bit more than a week ago, there has been some activity between Lebanon, some Syria as well, and Israel. Some firefights, some firing on from inside Lebanon, from Syria. Mortars, rockets, anti-tank missiles. Israel has responded with helicopter gunships. There have been some infiltrations. Yesterday was a very violent day on the border, so Israel said, okay, that's it, we're cutting it. We're going to evacuate the area, 28 different towns, evacuating from the north, because again, as I mentioned earlier, the concern is that that could open into another front. The Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon, that could open another front there. Evacuating those areas and creating a buffer zone. Israel has sent reservists there as well. So that is the situation now. Today is a bit quieter, much quieter actually.
Stephanie, thank you very much. My correspondent, Stephanie Fried in Tel Aviv. Well, let's talk now to Tommaso Della Longa, who's a spokesperson for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society. Good to see you, Tommaso. Thank you for joining us. So your organisation spoke to this programme a few days ago. How much has the situation in Gaza deteriorated since then?
Thanks for having me. The situation deteriorated a lot. I mean, actually, every minute the situation is going worse. I will use the word used by my colleagues of Palestine Red Crescent who are currently in Gaza, and they told me catastrophic. We are witnessing our hospital barely with some fuel, I mean, possibly for a day more, where at the moment some sectors of the hospital are without electricity, the electricity only in the sector that needed the most, like ICU and incubators for baby and so on. And also a situation where there are no medicine, there are scarce food, water. And then, I mean, our main concern is to get a safe and unhindered access to the Gaza Strip, and of course, the protection of civilians and healthcare workers.
So we heard from our correspondent in Gaza that she was rationing her own water. What kind of aid is most needed in Gaza now?
Well, I would say almost everything, but of course, water and food are essential together with medicine because treatment of patients is our utmost priority, but all the stocks are running out.
So how hopeful are you that aid and aid convoys will eventually be let through and perhaps a path for more aid be opened up?
Well, I mean, we had a lot of discussion, let's say, and also a lot of messaging going around in the last hours. We know that at the Rafah border, I mean, at the border with Egypt, there is a long queue of trucks and different agencies, including our one, I mean, including Red Cross and Crescent Network, has humanitarian aid waiting there. I mean, our call to all the parties really to open the access and to give safe and uninterrupted access. I mean, the logistics and help of the Egyptian Red Crescent teams are bringing aid at the border, and Palestine Red Crescent is ready to receive it. But of course, we need to have a green light. Without safety, nothing is possible.
And what about all those people who've already been displaced, with people leaving the north of Gaza, moving to the south? What kind of situation are they facing?
A situation that is absolutely complex. We are speaking about people living in the streets or with relatives or in schools, public buildings, I mean, hospitals. I mean, in the Gaza City Hospital of Palestine, there are hundreds of people who took refuge there just because they believe that an hospital is the safest place ever. And then, I mean, Palestine Red Crescent teams decided to refuse to leave, even if they were asked to evacuate the hospital 3 times, and they are still there. Their message is crystal clear. They don't want to leave behind patients. They don't want to leave behind the vulnerable people.
And we know that Hamas is holding hostages inside Gaza. What's your organisation doing to help with that situation?
Well, our first request is to free hostages immediately without any condition. Now, in our international movement, the colleagues of the International Committee of Red Cross have the clear mandate to speak with different parties in terms of hostages, so this is exactly what they are doing.
Tommaso, good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. That's Tommaso Della Longa from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society.
Thank you.
World leaders are flying into Beijing for the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation as China's Global Infrastructure Initiative reaches its 10-year milestone. Pakistan's interim Prime Minister Anwar-ul-Haq Kakar has now arrived in Beijing, as well as Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. The 2-day gathering starts on Monday, with over 4,000 delegates and dozens of international organisations taking part. It's considered to be the most important diplomatic event in China this year. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is also in Beijing for the event and has been meeting China's Premier Li Qiang. The two agreed to further cooperation in areas such as railway construction, new energy, the digital economy and artificial intelligence. Premier Li said China's development provided an opportunity for Europe and should be seen as a driving force rather than a risk. China has called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and condemned all actions that cause civilian casualties on either side. Foreign Minister Wang Yi made the remarks during a meeting with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Beijing. He also urged the establishment of a humanitarian corridor to avoid escalation of the crisis. Russian President Vladimir Putin is due to arrive in Beijing in the coming hours for the Belt and Road Forum. In an exclusive interview with China Media Group, Putin said China's global infrastructure initiative was fully aligned with Russia's vision of developing the Eurasian region.
Если говорить о инициативе председателя Си Цзиньпиня «Один поезд, один путь», он, по-моему, лет 10 назад сформулировал саму по себе идею, то она, мне представляется, была очень своевременной и хорошо развивается. Ведь эта идея, она, в ее основе лежит попытка объединить возможности многих стран для достижения общих целей развития. Это хорошая, правильная и технологически выстроенная инициатива, которая развивается. Да, мы видим, что кто-то воспринимает ее как попытку Китайской Народной Республики кого-то под себя подмять, но мы не видим этого. Мы видим просто желание к сотрудничеству Поэтому мы приветствуем вот эту инициативу председателя Си Цзиньпиня. Вместе работаем и готовы, и будем работать дальше. И наши вот собственные идеи по поводу развития Евразийского экономического союза, например, строительства Большой Евразии, они полностью совпадают с китайскими идеями в рамках предложенного сотрудничества «Один пояс, один путь».
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead.
I've been looking at how Italian fashion brands use the Made in Italy tag to bounce back from the coronavirus pandemic with strong sales in China.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
We're stepping out of the studio to take you on a brand new journey along the Belt and Road.
With a mission to record how the initiative has changed lives and livelihoods.
We travel to over 20 countries.
Мы ведем репортажи из Алматы, Казахстан,
à Dubaï, aux Émirats Arabes Unis,
desde las calles de Rio de Janeiro,
للمشاريع في داكا, Bangladesh.
We document not only infrastructure along the Belt and Road countries,
but also cultural links that bound the community with a shared future.
Stories of how they promote growth and improve lives.
We invite you
only on our special series of the New Silk Road.
Welcome back. A reminder of our headlines. Desperation and confusion in Gaza as hundreds of thousands of people wait to cross into Egypt but can't get through as the border remains closed. And US Secretary of State Antony Blinken returns to Israel as diplomatic efforts to contain the conflict intensify. Poland's general election is on a knife edge, with an opposition centre-left alliance hoping to unseat the ruling Conservatives after 8 years in power. Exit polls from Sunday's vote had shown the Law and Justice Party falling short of a majority, prompting the Liberal Civic Coalition to claim victory. But partial results from some areas have thrown those predictions into doubt. Let's talk to our correspondent Alyosha Milenkovic, who's in Warsaw. So, Alyosha, what's the latest on the vote count?
Well, Robin, I am monitoring results, the official results that are coming literally by minute. And so far, according to those results, we are hearing and seeing that 71% of all the votes are actually counted so far. And that from those 71% of the votes, and I will go through details, 36.82% of people voted for the ruling Peace Party, or PIS, Party of Law and Justice. They are followed by the Civic Coalition with 27.51%. Then on the third place, it is Third Way with 10.64%. Etc., etc. The thing is that all those figures are so much different comparing to the exit polls we just had maybe minutes after the voting stations were closed. Because according to those exit polls, they were saying that the ruling party, PIS, won't win the outright majority, won't win the majority of seats in the parliament and won't be able to create a coalition government with the possible party supporters. So the thing is that those exit polls apparently are a bit mistaken when we are seeing these latest results. What we know is that the results, the official and final results, will be available tomorrow morning. So by tomorrow morning, we hope that we will have 100% of counted votes and that the State Election Commission will actually address to the people and will actually give us final results. But that's now everything becomes even more interesting, because yesterday evening the opposition, the ruling party, everybody were saying that the main possibility, the biggest possibility to create a government will lay on the opposition party of Civic Coalition. And we spoke with a number of politicians yesterday evening from the opposition side, and they were very adamant that this will happen, and everybody based their statements just and right upon those exit polls. But those exit polls apparently are mistaken, and now all the options are on the table. There is still possibility that the ruling PIS would make a coalition with a third party, which might be the right-wing Confederația. That's the right-wing party, which might support PIS. And by the way, Robin, I'm afraid that I lost you. I cannot hear you anymore. But I hope that you have the latest from Poland.
Alyosha, thank you very much. That's our correspondent, Alyosha Milenkovic in Warsaw. The first batch of Chinese aid has arrived in Afghanistan after a series of earthquakes there. The tents, blankets and clothes will help the thousands of people made homeless by the disaster. Our correspondent Zamarilai Abasin reports.
This is the 11256 Chinese aircraft just landed in Herat province, as you can see, there is a second plane just arrived loaded with humanitarian assistance of 30 million yuan that will be distributed to the affected people in different parts of Herat.
The humanitarian aid delivered to earthquake-hit areas arrives at a time when tens of thousands of families are in dire need of relief. After several quakes struck hundreds of villages in Zindajan, Ghorian and Robatesangi district, and at least 14 of them have been completely destroyed in several districts across Herat. De facto Afghan authorities praised China for its generous assistance as they received the aid at Herat airport.
It's been very important assistance, but we need more assistance. All of the materials that have arrived are generally important, whether it's tents, folding beds, or warm cloths. We thank the Chinese government an urgent increase to the assistance.
As tens of thousands of families are affected in different parts of Herat province, locals say they appreciate the Chinese government timely response.
China is our friendly neighbor. We thank it for the assistance it's been providing, and we urge an acceleration to the efforts.
We especially thank China because it has stood alongside us at such a difficult time. We urge all countries, particularly our neighboring countries, to increase their assistance to the Afghan people. As you see, the situation is an emergency for the people here.
China has been assisting the people of Afghanistan in difficult times. Just last year, there was a heavy earthquake in Paktika's Gyan district where China stepped in and helped the people in need. Here, as you can see, this humanitarian assistance is a timely approach, according to the locals. Zamarilai Abasin, CGTN, Herat.
The son of Ecuador's richest man has won the country's presidential election, prompting celebrations from his supporters. Business heir Daniel Noboa pledged to rebuild the country as it struggles with rising crime and a faltering economy. Campaigning took place amid unprecedented violence, including the assassination of a leading anti-corruption candidate in August. An Indonesian court has cleared the way for President Joko Widodo's 36-year-old son to run for vice president next year. A panel of judges, led by the president's brother-in-law, upheld the country's minimum age requirement of 40 for high office, but said there could be an exception for people below that age who are serving as regional leaders. Widodo's son is currently the mayor of Surakarta City. Donald Trump wants to give evidence in a London court to disprove allegations that Russia backed his 2016 election campaign. The former US president is suing a business intelligence consultancy over claims about ties between his campaign and Moscow, as well as his sex life. Trump says the claims are false and that he's suffered damage to his reputation. The Made in Italy label has proved to be a useful brand for Italian firms operating in China. Italian-made goods remain popular in the Chinese market. But while companies may have made it through the pandemic, they're not immune to the global economic slowdown. Our correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
The market for luxury goods has been red hot in recent months, with Chinese consumers once again splashing out on jewellery, cosmetics and clothes. At the headquarters of Stefano Ricci, just outside Florence, the factory has been busy trying to keep up with that demand. But this isn't anything new. The fashion brand has deep roots in the Chinese market.
First of all, I can't take credit for our history in China because I was still in high school.
Niccolo Ricci, who's the son of founder Stefano Ricci and the current CEO, remembers his father returning from a trip to China in the early 1990s.
He talked to me and my brother and he told us, kids, I just came from one country where I was very, very impressed about the speed on how everybody was walking. So I believe this is the country we have to invest for our company, because I'm sure that in the future they will lead the economics around the world. And that's how everything started.
Since then, the brand has opened boutiques in Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong and several other Chinese cities. It's been described as the outfitter for the 0.001%, selling suits, bags and homeware with dizzying price tags. Clients aren't just buying handmade pieces though, they're buying a slice of Italy, of La Dolce Vita. Different countries have different rules, but if you want to market your products as made in Italy 100%, then they have to be designed, produced and packaged all on Italian soil. And those strict controls have allowed Italian brands to build their reputations in places like China.
Chinese consumers appreciate Italian products for their artisan quality, the workmanship, good taste, the style, the aesthetic that we call the Italian sound, which is inspired by the Italian lifestyle.
Stefano Ricci's management is bullish about the Chinese market, but there are signs the global luxury sector is starting to cool off. Shares in luxury giants LVMH and Kering, which owns Gucci, both dipped substantially. So while Stefano Ricci's super wealthy clients might not have to tighten their belts right away, the luxury sector itself is not isolated from a weak global economy. Giles Gibson for CGTN, Florence.
The headlines again. Desperation and confusion in Gaza as hundreds of thousands of people wait to cross into Egypt but can't get through as the border remains closed. And US Secretary of State Antony Blinken returns to Israel as diplomatic efforts to contain the conflict intensify. And that is The World Today. Thanks for watching. We're back with more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.